Hello and welcome everyone to our monthly EDGE webinar. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few things. And I first wanted to thank you for joining us today. This webinar is recorded and it is going to be available shortly after our meeting here on our ACRO website. If you would like to turn on closed captions, you can do so by going to the bottom panel of Zoom. And please do engage with the panelists today, and you can do so by using the Q&A button, and you can ask your questions anonymously, and you can ask at any time. And you're also welcome to use the chat button. And without any further ado, I would like to hand it over to Julia. Thank you, Julia.
You're welcome, Belma. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. We're so glad you're here for the April 2024 EDGE user group. We're a week early, so we hope we have a good number of attendants. It looks like you're filing in now. Glad you're here. We have a lot of exciting updates as we just finished yesterday afternoon the ACRO annual meeting that was held for 2024 in Columbus, Ohio. And we'll give you some updates on what happened there and what's going on. But I'm going to turn it over to my good colleague, Dave Mahali, right now, and he will take the time to introduce to you our IESC chair and the members who are here today. Dave, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks, Julia. Hi, everyone. I would like to just remind you all that the members of the IESC are volunteers and really do a lot of work in addition to their normal duties in making sure that all the EDGE sausage, for lack of a better term, gets made. And all the implications in that sausage making process do apply probably. But anyway, with us today, we have the chair, Jasmine Saidi-Kienert. We also have Shelby Kearley with us today and Robert Watkins. And so I'm going to turn it over to Jasmine so that she can make a few remarks, and then we'll get rolling.
Thank you so much, Dave. Hello, everybody. And it's just wonderful to be here with you all today. I hope everyone who attended the annual meeting had a productive and fruitful conference. So a little bit about the IESC, which is the International Education Standards Council. This is a group of individuals who represent private and public universities in the United States, as well as credential evaluation agencies. We have currently 7 voting members, and we are a volunteer group. Everyone who has joined the IESC brings with them incredible years of experience, hands-on experience in international education research and publications, as well as credential evaluation. We meet once every 2 weeks, and we go through the credentials that have been presented to us by EDGE users or questions that have come our way. And we also review country profiles, and where necessary, we update the information, we revise grading scales where needed, and add any new credentials that come our way. So it's a very robust and dynamic group. We stay engaged almost daily. So we look forward to the comments and questions you bring our way, whether through our monthly EDGE user groups or just through the exchange, because you keep us on our toes, and we really appreciate your contributions, because this is how we keep the EDGE database alive and active. So thank you again, and I look forward to what we have in store for you today. I'll pass it on to Julia.
Thanks, Jasmine. So today we have content concerning, as I said before, the annual meeting highlights, and we'll share a little bit about a session that Robert and Bill gave coming up here, so you can hear that content, because I think it's really important for the people in this audience to hear that. I think you might be the people this is really geared toward. And we'll talk a little bit, we'll recap a little bit about the the Araratian Baccalaureate. Thank you, Jasmine. I know, trying to think about it, right, Drew? And then we'll talk about Rwanda and the bachelor's degree. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end, too. So please remember to add your questions to the Q&A rather than the chat. And for those of you looking at the little thumbnails of us, there are two pictures of me, but one is actually Drew Carlisle. If he takes off his video, you will see he does not look exactly like me. We're not mirror twins, but he has my picture up there. Okay, so let's go on. We're going to start with our poll as we always start. Velma, are we ready to go with the poll? There we go. Edge user group, we always have 3 questions for you. The first one asks if you are an Edge subscriber, and then if this is your first Edge user group, and then we'd like to know what segment you represent out there. If you're an educational institution, a government entity, a law firm, evaluation service staff. So take a minute and look at that. And then we're going to go in and we're going to move into, I usually share something from the Farmer's Almanac or of interest, some trivia about the day. But as you may know, we have something else to talk about that occurred while we were at the annual meeting, and we'll share some photos of that and some comments about that in just a minute. How are we doing on the poll, Velma? Did we have results yet? Yes, we do. All right. 38 out of 40 of you are an Edge subscriber. We thank you for your subscription. We will continue to try and give you the best content that we can and update as quickly as we can. The 2 of you that aren't Edge subscribers, we hope that this webinar itself and the discussion that you hear may make you inclined to begin a subscription in the future. Is this your first Edge user group? 5 of you, wonderful, 13%. This is your first Edge user group. We hope it won't be your last. And for those of you who are coming back, thank you again for being here. You really are the reason we do this. And 93%, 37 of you are institutional staff. Wonderful. 2 from an evaluation service and 1 from the government. Thank you. Glad you're here from the government. Great. So that's our user poll. Let's go ahead and go on to what we have in store. Okay, so our annual meeting was in Columbus, Ohio. Those of you who know me well also know that I am from Ohio, went to school in Columbus, but grew up about 65 miles north of Columbus. And this is my brother's home where they had I.O., Drew, where they had Totality and sent many pictures. And so this is a picture just about the height of the eclipse, which was on Monday. And they had about 4 minutes of Totality there. You might be able to see in the background there's a little building with a light on it. And it's a little barn that they have. And they talked about how the chickens went quiet and all went back into the barn as they thought it was nighttime. And other folks talked about different things that happened. I think, Jasmine, you talked about the crickets. Anybody else want to share any of their experiences with Totality?
Julia, you mentioned the chickens, they went down to go to sleep. Did any male chickens decide to alert everyone when morning came around? Did you hear anything about that?
I did not ask that question. I should have. I will tell you, Drew, and you Edge user groups might enjoy this, that we have every year at ACRA, we have a first timers experience, which was on Sunday, where all the people who are at their first ACRA meeting come to a series of tables, and we always have a table for the international department and Edge, and we gave away Eclipse gum at the table, which a lot of people really enjoyed, that Eclipse gum giveaway. So lots of snacks and things that were Eclipse related going on, and it was just a fun time. We can go to the next slide. And then here, just so you know that we took part, there you see a number of our good international colleagues. In the forefront is Marta Manzano, who did a session on Cuba along with our good pal Dave Mahaly right here. Several of you probably know Stacy Bernhardt from Florida International University. And there we have Jamie Dolan, who heads up FCCPT, which is the Foreign Credentialing Commission for Physical Therapy, and then yours truly at the end. So this was when it was still light outside, but you can see we all have our glasses on and are ready for the event. To the right of that is a picture of Leslie Clausen-Eicher, IESC member, former ACRO employee, and just international education and admissions expert extraordinaire, where she received the International Award. at ACRO's annual meeting. So hats off to Leslie. And just to celebrate that, and because it was truly a highlight of the meeting, we're going to share Leslie's video thanking everyone for her award. And just so you know, Soledad O'Brien was our opening speaker, and Soledad could not get over this video. She just loved it. So let's go ahead and play the video, Velma.
And right before we go, I just want to highlight that Leslie is one of the members of the IESC. That like she's not just someone that we wanted to honor here. She is someone that works on all of these placement recommendations, that does research to really help us understand those grading scales. Leslie gets down in the nitty gritty of it, and I really enjoy collaborating with her. Let's go to you.
Can't hear it.
Oh, but Leslie, I can't hear you. Speak louder. So Julia, when you were there and you were able to see the video taking place live, were there any things that really just needed to be brought to everyone's attention? Things that were really noteworthy that we might not get a chance to see?
You'll see it in just a moment in the video. I think you'll know where it comes in.
Hello, I'm Leslie Clausen-Eicher. I work at Seattle University and I'm the Assistant Director for Graduate International Admissions. I'm this year's recipient of the Award for Excellence in International Education. I joined the ACRO National Staff in 2000, and I spent 20 great years working in international education services at ACRO International. The colleagues I met while at ACRO helped to launch my career in international credential evaluation, and they continue to be my good friends as well. I benefited so much from working together with ACRO members on international admissions and international education. One person in particular who has been a mentor to me from the very beginning is Dale Goff, who taught me the 13 rules of international credential evaluation. Anne Koenig was also someone I had the great good fortune to work with and learn from. Thank you, Anne and Dale. Now that I'm working at Seattle University, I'm really enjoying experiencing ACRO from the member side of things. I currently sit on ACRO's International Education Standards Council, and I can see myself getting more involved in committees and groups that focus on international education. I'd like to thank my colleagues in the field of international credential evaluation. I've learned so much from all of you. We've laughed, and together we have done our part to advance international education at all of our institutions and organizations through the wonderful collaborative nature of our profession. Thanks, everyone.
You could literally hear how excited that cat was for Leslie. I mean, this is truly something that, yeah. Oh, sorry. This is truly something that the whole family's getting on board with.
Yeah, it was quite a moment. The audience could not stop laughing because this was shown at our opening session, right? So there were hundreds, if not thousands of people in there watching. And Soledad O'Brien was there, and she got up and she just was laughing so hard. She's like, that was just the best. She never missed a beat. She just kept right on going. And the unfortunate thing was that Leslie's flight was delayed, and so she didn't get there till after the video played. But she heard continuously from people at the meeting about, like, everybody knew her. She was just like, oh, your cat. And so it was quite cute. Anyhow,
Julia, what is her cat's name? Did she have to wear a sign as we were?
Scully. And that was a question she was asked over and over again. And you know, ACRO has ribbons that you can attach to your name badge, and there were several that were cat related. So I made sure I got Leslie several cat related ribbons. But yes, over and over again, she was met by people who said, "Oh, I loved your video." So it was fun. Anyhow, we can go to the next slide. I just wanted to share our pride and congratulations to Leslie as well. All right. One of the sessions I mentioned that was a big hit was Robert Watkins and Dr. Bill Paver did a session on how to research an EDGE profile. So I'm going to turn it over to Robert. He's going to tell you a little bit about that session and sort of do a mini recap of that session.
Thank you, Julia.
Robert?
It got off to a rocky start because neither Bill or I had had the presence of mind to take our presentation to the speaker ready room so they could load it up on the laptops that are in each of the session rooms. Fortunately, our Group 2 coordinator, Opal Bartzis, grabbed a QR code from Bill and raced to the speaker ready room where she gave it to them. And within 10 minutes after I began to start and stumble, suddenly it appears on the laptop in front of me, and we're able to throw it up onto the screen and continue from there. But basically what Bill and I did was to, first we began with an overview of the way research had been done for the years leading up to the creation of EDGE, really the last 50 years or so. It really began in the 50s when some of the publications started to come out. These were called World Education Series, not to be confused with the acronym of the New York Credential Service, but it was called the WEST process. And these were single country studies that one or maybe two authors would put together on a single country. And then simultaneously what you had were workshops that went with a lot more people involved, overseen by a committee also that was called JCAL, the Joint Committee on Workshops. And by joint committee, I mean a partnership of ACRO and NAFSA that together oversaw these publications. They were largely funded, not exclusively, but largely funded by the government through USIA, the United States Information Agency, which existed until the 1990s. And they would, if they had an interest in a certain country, they would fund that for us. So we didn't necessarily get to pick the countries where we thought we needed the most information. We had to pick the ones that the government kind of wanted to spend money on or have us write about and so on. But nevertheless, these were important works. Ultimately, the workshops and the country studies merged into what became known as the PEER process, Projects in International Education Research. And so the work continued into the 90s, and it really did two things. One, of course, it gave us the only information we had. Remember, this is pre-internet. Therefore, the only information we had on countries and their credentials and their grading and all of that was what we found in those books. And the second thing that these books did was to provide professional development opportunities that were so terribly important that enable us to, well, end up like Leslie and get the award for excellence in international education. The problem is that as we approach the turn of the century, USIA goes away, so money starts to dry up, and it becomes crystal clear with the advent of technology that print publications essentially were no longer sustainable. The information we were still able to get now through the internet, university websites, etc., but the professional development opportunities were lacking. We had the information, but not the opportunities. I was fortunate enough to go on two of them, and it showed the difference in the way a country study might work and a workshop might work. My first one was the PEER Canada workshop. We had 17 people altogether that were involved in that publication all across Canada. That was where I first met, for example, Jasmine Saidi Keenert. Only she was Jasmine Saidi at that time. And she had just come back. She had just joined us from having done the year before, done a workshop on Central America that was published at about the same time. Then in 1999, I went on a single country study, the Philippines, and there were 4 of us altogether that were involved in that project. It was published in 2001, but by the middle of the first decade of this century, the print publications essentially stopped. Now, ACRO and NAFSA weren't the only ones providing information by means of publications. And I highlighted this in our presentation as well. IERF was contributing significantly with the country index in 1969, but subsequently the new country index volumes 1 and 2, published in 2004 and 2011 respectively. I've got right behind me on the bookshelf where I have all the old Pure West volumes. I have the 2 volumes of that IERF study, the new country index, which I go to and look at every day just about that I'm working on credentials and stuff. In addition, WES was putting out the World Education News and Reviews, still are in fact, and this is an invaluable source of information as well. They give you a complete rundown of the country education system, and then they'll do sample documents for you in there as well. Finally, I also highlighted the fact that ECE in Milwaukee, Educational Credential Evaluators Incorporated, put out a wonderful collection of studies from the 1990s, from about the early 90s to 2015. 2015 was the last book they did, a fantastic volume on Iran by William Bellin of ECE. These are great books. I am not sure if they are still available even in any kind of digital format. I'm sure you could go to the ECE website and find out if they're still there. But I've got all of the books here. My people use them. They're absolutely fantastic. But as I said before, print publications were not really sustainable. And so you saw the advent of technology with all kinds of verification databases, Enoch Narek websites that give you information about that particular European country's educational system. Of course, the Bologna pages always have information on what's going on with the Bologna compliant degrees of any given particular country, and all these kinds of things. And of course, then in about 2003, 2004, we roll out EDGE. Bill Paver had retired from UT, and he'd been wanting to do a project like we didn't call it EDGE at the time, but a sort of a database project at UT. But then he retired, tired of the university politics, which I'm sure is not a surprise to most of you out there. Once he had left UT, he had more time on his hands, and so he was able to construct and create EDGE, and then decided that EDGE needed to go to a nationally known entity, and so he picked ACRO as the one to take EDGE off his hands. And of course, ACRO has been behind it ever since, with support staff, fantastic support staff like you see each month with these webinars. Drew Carlisle and of course Julia and all of the folks that are involved. Bella also involved with putting on these webinars, are also keeping EDGE constantly updated. We may do the content and the work on the IESC, but they're the ones that make sure that it gets formatted correctly, inputted correctly, and so on. So after I finished with the history and then creation of EDGE, we kind of finished up with what if someone's going to write or produce an EDGE profile, here's the way they ought to go about it. Here's what they ought to do. First, I did it in sort of general terms. Then we went to the individual pages, the overview page, the credentials page, the glossary page, and so forth. Credentials page, I'll just pick that one to highlight. One of the things that we have to do, the IESC, as we're having our calls every 2 weeks, is if we make a change, if we put information into a credential entry way of another credential, like it takes this credential to get into this program that we're looking at, that there needs to be an entry for that as well. The worst thing that could happen would be for one of you as an EDGE user to go in and click on a country, click on a credential, and see that this particular degree takes the higher secondary certificate to get into this particular degree program. And if there's not an entry for the higher secondary certificate, we're in trouble. So you have to make sure that there's everything on there. The grading pages, we also like to have the secondary and tertiary unless they're the same, like in France, and so on down the line. So basically kind of went through all of that and finished up. On the final slide was future projects. And this is something that'll be of interest to, I suspect, to you folks. Number one, Palestine, consisting of essentially Gaza and the West Bank, is a project we've been working on for a while. It's now about to go up, if it hasn't already. Drew, I know we thought we put the finishing touches on it last meeting, but then the annual meeting got in the way, and I lost track of where we are on that. And Drew will probably tell us in a minute. But that's the first thing we want to do. Second thing, there are some countries, as some of you noticed, that don't have ladders. One of the reasons they still don't have ladders, even when we first realized that these were missing, was that we were at the same time trying to make our ladder format consistent. Remember that when Edge first rolled out 20 years ago, there were multiple authors, which meant multiple ways of doing things, and therefore multiple ways in which ladders were configured. And we went ahead and put it up because we needed to roll Edge out. Now what Drew and company are trying to do is to go through there and systematize and make them all consistent. Once we have the format consistent, then we can go looking for the missing ones, because we can now configure the missing ones the way that the format is now going to demand, rather than to just throw together some sort of ladder and put it in there. So that's a second project that equally is important to be done immediately. Finally, there was hope, certainly on my part. There was hope that we could still do some country research studies similar to what used to happen in the print publications. ACRO was behind it for a while. Melanie Gottlieb was instrumental in getting the Cuba project pulled together in 2018, and 10 of us went down to Cuba and ultimately added to the Cuba entry for Edge, and also did a white paper. She had plans to follow up with some other countries within a couple of years. She was pretty sure she could get the funding from Mike Riley, then executive director. And then suddenly pandemic hits, right? And that just puts everything on hold. Now Melanie, of course, is the executive director, and I'm sure she has interest in that, but she's got so many things going on at once that she's not had a chance to further that kind of project thinking. Bill and I have been thinking about it a little, and so we may try to get FCSA to start something that maybe ACRO can latch onto, and others perhaps, and do it. Why do we want to do that? Number one, we want more professional development opportunities for folks in the field like you. We benefited from this kind of thing during our career in the past 50 years, but the opportunities like that are very few. We will talk about Baden-Württemberg towards the end of this webinar. That's an opportunity, but I'm talking about a solid country research project that would really do two things. First of all, it would deepen one's skills in terms of international education and credential evaluation. But secondly, it would enable you to really hone some professional friendships and associations that go beyond just meeting people at an annual meeting. But for 3 weeks or 2 weeks intensively working with someone on research and ultimately a publication, it really does deepen some friendships and professional associations. So I'm hoping that we can do something like that in the relatively near future, and maybe get some other players, and particularly some younger folks, involved in those kinds of projects. Julia, I'm going to stop there and give it back to you.
Thank you, Robert. We appreciate that. And that was really a great little chat for everybody to know just how much. And I was just actually typing to you all that if you have extensive knowledge of a country or a profile and you're interested in really providing a comprehensive update, please let us know. You'll have a great community that is supportive in your efforts and in giving you sort of updates on where you might find additional information and how you might put this together. It really could be it's a great professional development exercise for you as well. I'm going to turn it over to Drew, who's going to add a few more things probably. I did tell you that The request an update button is on every EDGE page. Drew, if you'd like to go into that anymore, but then talk about what we're going to our latest content update.
Well, so just a couple of things. One of them is that so many of you have been to these EDGE user groups before. I remember from our poll earlier on, and some of you may recall that I mentioned Gloria Nathanson grant. That's one of those opportunities that we identified at ACRO, and we said this is a way that people would be able to go ahead and take that knowledge and share that out. And it's a way that we wanted to help incentivize that. As Robert was saying, not as many opportunities exist that that have always historically been, well, not always, that have historically been present. And this is one of those opportunities that we kind of looked at. We, as we were going through, as Robert was mentioning, there is an emphasis on having a standard approach so that one has good ideas on how to perform this research. As they were indicating, this is the kind of thing that was predating the internet, that required different levels of diving deep, and those methods and techniques should not be lost simply because the internet is now more widely available. These are the kinds of things that we want to keep in the field and keep the best practices of how you go about evaluating from those primary sources all the way through. So whenever you want to submit something into us, when we are going to do the research, it is so helpful when we receive documents that do not include any personally identifying information. Those are the things that really allow us to see all of the details that are really imperative for understanding credentials. And basically, when you send that over to us, it's going to help us to help you a little bit faster. If that's something that you have documents that are not reflected within EDGE, if you come across credentials that you haven't seen in there, these are the kinds of things that we want to update. And as Julia mentioned, on every page within ACRO EDGE, there's a contact us and an opportunity right there where you could upload your documents securely. Again, so long as there's no personally identifiable information on there, we cannot and will not review anything that has anyone's information on there in the interest of protecting student privacy. Now, I'll talk more about all that a little bit later on. Let's get to the nitty gritty. We talked a while ago about the Araratian Baccalaureate, and I know that there's a hard T in that word. Jasmine, I think you know some other things about the Araratian Baccalaureate that you might be able to share with us. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for that, Drew. And you're never going to let me down, are you now, with the T? I appreciate it. Well, thank you. Again, I wanted to give a big thanks to Robert for this wonderful overview, historical overview of just how EDGE came about and the activities of several international educators who have brought to us wonderful publications over the course of the many years. And in chat, I shared that several of the publications that Robert had mentioned, the peer workshop reports, the projects for international education research, and as well as the World Education Series publications that were put forth by ACRO. Many of them have been scanned and digitized, and you will find them on the countries that had this relevant research completed. So even if you can't find them in print form, do check EDGE, and you may see that a particular country that had that research done will have that scanned version of the printed form. It's really good to have these in your archives, because historic information always helps you understand what's happening today in a particular country's education system. The Araratian Baccalaureate diploma came our way through colleagues that were discussing this on the TISEP Gaggle. Occasionally when I'm kind of on checking those emails, I come across something that's new, and other colleagues that are with me on IASC do the same. And we bring it forward and put it on the agenda for the IASC to review and do the research. And according to the information we gathered, the Araratian diploma, or the baccalaureate, was first awarded in 2016. It is a joint project of the Ministry of Education and Science of Armenia, along with the Cambridge Assessment International Education. This is a credential that is offered to those who have finished grade 9 and are then in the program for 3 years of secondary school. They prepare for this Araratian baccalaureate examination, which is has 2 stages or 2 levels. One is called the standard level, and the other is called the extended level. Somewhat similar to the GCSE, the UK GCSEs, as well as the GCE A levels. So the standard level could be a little bit of less intensified subject focus, while the extended level subjects are those that are, as the word says, extended, a lot more detailed study of that particular subject. Students, again, as I said, are enrolled in the program for 3 years after grade 9, and then they sit for the external exams leading to the Araratian baccalaureate diploma. We are recommending the U.S. equivalence of a senior high school graduation for those who received the Araratian baccalaureate credential. And if they have the final examination certificate, there are the subjects that are taken at the standard level will be noted with the grades, as well as the extended level and with their respective grades. Some advanced standing credit may be considered for the subjects at the extended level on a course-by-course basis, depending on your institutional policies regarding sort of advanced level subjects that are completed at the upper secondary level. I think that's all, and there's let's see if there's anything else. There's a grading scale that is also provided. Yes, Drew just kind of shared that with me. Grading scales are also there on the document. You will see that, and we have also we will be posting that on Edge so that you will see what the exam results can be converted with the grades into the U.S. education system. So that's it for Araratian with the hard T, Araratian. And Ararat is the mountain in Mount Ararat in Armenia, where Noah's Ark landed. So this is what the title of the diploma is referring to.
I was going to say, isn't it a mountain that's visible from the capital of Armenia?
Yes,
yeah.
It's
really
beautiful.
like sets the background, really sets the sky.
Exactly. You'll see it on every postcard or any poster, any tourist portfolio you'll see will have the mountain in the back. So
all right.
Thank you.
Very Dave, let's we were talking about the eclipse a little while ago. I'm looking at this flag here. Did you do work on Rwanda in honor of the eclipse? Kind of tie this celestial event together?
I regret to say that wasn't how it happened, Drew, but I can tell everyone that where we viewed the eclipse, there was a porch behind us, and many people were wearing their eclipse glasses before the eclipse started. I happened to be seated below the porch, and if anyone looked down, they would see a direct reflection of the sun off the top of my head. So that's a little background story on the eclipse. About Rwanda, we were just talking about how these things might come to us. They might come to us from a question in an Edge user group. They might come to us directly from the Edge website, where somebody requests a clarification or a correction or an addition. The Rwanda issue just kind of came up organically through something that I was looking at for another purpose, probably for one of the law school admissions council projects that we work on. And just kind of by accident noticed that there were references to 3-year honors degrees in Rwanda. It had been my impression always that the the 3-year degrees in Rwanda were ordinary or general degrees, and that the 4th year would be an honors degree, not a 3+1, but an integrated kind of 4-year program. So even though I sit in on the IESC meetings mostly in an advisory capacity, I'm more of a staff liaison. I don't have any voting rights. I learned what happens when you open your mouth about something in front of the council. They invited me to come back to them with recommendations as to what to do about it. It had been some time since I had been in that jury situation where you have to bring your performance or your information and have it vetted. And so here we find ourselves kind of in the middle of the process where we don't know exactly where we're going to go with this yet, because more information was requested. And so, to make a long story maybe a little bit shorter, there are institutions that have 3-year honors bachelor's degrees now in Rwanda. And there are some institutions that have mostly 3-year honors degrees with maybe 1 or 2 4-year honors degrees in the within the same university in whatever field. You might have a longer degree. Quite true, Shelby. I just saw your comment. In any case, we're proposing that we might have rather than listing them separately, we might have a consolidated entry with the, as Robert always says, or sometimes says, bifurcated credential advice with the 3- and 4-year degrees. But that's just really more of an example of something that's coming. We don't necessarily even have a credential to look at yet, but we're looking for them. So we'd like to find some examples of, especially the 3-year honors degrees. Invitation to everyone out there to send a redacted document if you ever come across something like this, and we'll eventually get it up. The issue that kind of put a wrench in the works as I was presenting this for approval to the council is that the 3-year honors degree does lead into a master's program, I'm assuming, but we haven't really been able to find the curricular evidence either through the Wayback Machine or current websites. It's not really clear to me how the ministry does it. So, I will bring all the magic words to bear that we use on Google searches and other ways to try to find some legislation or some documentation of this. But as it stands, this is just a work in progress. But that's really how it goes. We can't take information that we have about something that's happened and instantly put it up into the EDGE database, into the credential advice with a specific listing for each credential until we really are sure that we know what we're talking about. They don't want to lead anyone astray in that regard. That leads me to just say a little bit about the ladders, pursuant to what Robert said. We do have ladders for virtually every country, new ladders that are all basically in the same format. And it's the vetting of the information in those ladders now that we have to kind of do. So some of the new ladders are up. You'll see them depending on which country profiles you're looking at, and other ones we're retaining the old ladders until we can get the new ones vetted and ready. So that's something that we'll be really happy to report to you in the coming months, that we have more and more ladders going up. And this is a perfect time to do it now that the ACRO annual meeting is over and some of the pressure to do content for presentations and other purposes gone. So that's Rwanda for me, and turn it back to Drew or Julia, whoever has the next leg. I think we're going up to highlights and coming events, if I'm not mistaken.
I want to say that what we're going to talk about are some of just the general things that we want to be sure that people are aware of at ACRO. We already talked about the eclipse. Obviously, that was the most important part. But what we really wanted to do was just highlight some things that ACRO in particular is working on. Julia, I think we have it's still open for the end of let's see, April, May, and it closes sometime in June, the Baden-Württemberg, right?
That's right, the Baden-Württemberg seminar. The application is open. They just opened in late March, and they're currently open for your application. What is the Baden-Württemberg seminar, you ask? It is a wonderful week-long learning opportunity, which you will learn everything about the German education system, and specifically in the state of Baden-Württemberg, which is in southwest Germany. It will be hosted this year as an in-person seminar, so you get to go to Germany if you're selected, in Stuttgart. This is Stuttgart's first year, but they have often hosted several things since they are the capital there in Baden-Württemberg. And like I said, it focuses on the German education system. You will visit many different types of educational institutions in Germany, and you'll really talk about, ways to expand exchanges from your institution to institutions in Germany. They keep you very busy, taking you to see institutions, but they also keep you very well fed and having fun and seeing just all sorts of things. Several of our IESC members have been on the tour, and on this call alone, I think Shelby and Robert have both been on the Baden-Württemberg tour. So if they'd like to pipe in and add anything, you can see that we say who should apply. We really like to see ACRO members put an application in too. NAFSA and ACRO do this together along with the ministry, but we'd really like to see more and more ACRO members come into it. There's a QR code there so you can find out more information. Make sure you answer the questions that are on the application. The ministry covers all the expenses except for your airfare to and from Germany. So one of the things we ask for in the application is a support letter from your supervisor, just sort of so that they're aware of what the situation is, that airfare. Many times institutions will cover that for their employee, but also to understand that you're going to be away for a week, but you're going to come back with just really good information. So I don't know, Shelby or Robert, if you'd like to say anything about your experience, and you'll visit everything from
Julia, sure. Mine was longer ago than Shelby, so hers will be a little more up to date in terms of what's happening now. I went in 2006. And then again, while I was vice president, I was asked to attend in 2012 because it was the 30th anniversary of the seminar. And then I gave a few remarks on behalf of ACRO, because as you know, as everyone should know, it's an ACRO and NAFSA project along with the state ministry of research and education there in the state of Baden-Württemberg. Of course, they fund it, but we help select the people, sign the MOU to keep it going, and tout it at our respective annual conferences and so forth. But you're absolutely right, Julia. I learned so much in that 1 week about German education. It really, really helped me when I got back to UT, and those things would come, and those documents would come across my desk. Shelby, you probably have a more up-to-date version of what goes on.
Well, not that much up to date because I went the year after you did.
Oh,
I went in 2007. But we were actually based out of Stuttgart University. It's an amazing city. We saw education from kindergarten all the way through. I think the last one was a Real Clinic, which is a postgraduate medical clinic. And you get a chance to visit with administrators, visit with some students, obviously not the kindergarten students, although I would have loved that. And learn firsthand what it is that they do during the day, how involved the school day is for them, what kind of documentation are the administration issuing, and how is that issued and whatnot. We got all kinds of questions answered. When we went, it was also kind of a very interesting time in Germany, especially in Baden-Württemberg, because they had just introduced tuition and there were riots in the streets because it was going to cost a whole 500 euros a year to go to school. I wish. And so they were talking about challenges that they're facing as well. So it was really very interesting. And Julia is right. They have your day planned from from sunup to sundown. And it was never a dull moment. And one of the most interesting things that we got to tour was the State Winemaking Institute, which is actually an academic institution where people come from all over the world to learn how to make great wine. It was an awesome experience, and I really can't say strongly enough that that was what really got me over my terror and fear of German credentials, because before then I would just shake. Now I don't shake anymore.
You know, it's so interesting what you say about the winemaking, because I think a lot of us think Germany, we think beer, but the state of Baden-Württemberg is an incredible wine producing country, and you just drive for miles and miles,
Yeah,
and see the vineyards, don't you, Shelby? Yeah, so it's a very cool place to be. I was in Ulm 2 years ago when Ulm hosted the webinar, and it just was a fabulous, and it's a wonderful time of the year to be there too, October. So this year it's October, I believe it's the 20th to the 26th. It'll be a beautiful time of year to be in Germany. So moving on from that, I'll turn it. Go ahead, Drew.
Well, there was a question in the chat about about what the requirements are. Pablo mentions it mentions that the individual must be a member of ACRO or NAFSA. What does this mean? It means working for them? No. We can talk about from the ACRO perspective, but Julia can explain all of that what the details are.
Right. That just means you're a member. Your institution is a member, or your entity is a member of ACRO, and we now have open rosters. So if your institution's a member, you can be on the roster to be a member. So that's a big change that ACRO has made, that was approved by our board at last year's annual meeting. So just a little bit about that open roster change is, as long as your institution is a member of ACRO, anybody that is at that institution can ask to be added to their institution's roster. So that's what we're looking for from ACRO, and NAFSA the same thing. If you're a NAFSA member, you are welcome to apply, but you need to have membership in one or the other, as this is a collaboration between ACRO, NAFSA, and the ministry in Baden-Württemberg. Drew, I'll let you go on to the next slide if you'd like.
You know, that was a perfect little segue. Did you plan that, Julia? Because these things are available for ACRO members, and the ACRO Exchange is a community that is uniquely available for those ACRO members. So as Julie was mentioned, we opened up the rosters, and now an unlimited number of folks can get on and have ACRO membership benefits. Now that is not ACRO Edge. We're here at the Edge user group, but if you decide to get that Edge subscription, being an ACRO member means that you will get that at a discounted rate. You're going to get discounts on meetings. You're going to have discounts on online courses. You're going to have discounts on publications. You're going to have free webinars that are included for everyone, whether or not you're there with ACRO. But you're going to get access to these communities, and the communities are really where you're going to learn a lot. You're going to be able to share a lot. You're going to be able to connect with colleagues, and these communities, the ACRO International. We used to have an international activities group. Well, now what we have is an international activities community. It's the same basic idea, but this is just exclusive for ACRO members, and it's going to be something you can go back and you can research and you can look at things along the way, and you can identify all the different. I guess you can identify everything that's going to impact what you need as you're looking for how that changes through your system. I will go ahead and go on to the next slide where we can just talk a little bit more about just a high level overview on one of the things that we're doing for EDGE. So Robert talked about it a little bit earlier. We're identifying credentials where there's an opportunity to Dave mentioned it earlier where there was the opportunity to rearrange some of the credentials and highlight the way that we're sharing that information out. This is something where we want to be sure that everyone understands how to go about managing their Acro Edge roster, how to get the most out of all of the benefits of the service. Because if you don't know how to do all of the benefits of the service, you're not going to get everything right there. So as you sign up, we send all of these information, and you can also reference all of this on every page within Edge. At the top, there's a user guide, there's an FAQ. That'll be really great. I do see that we have a couple of questions that we're going to answer live. So let's go on, get to that. The Gloria Nathanson Fund, which I referenced earlier, is one of those things if you're looking for opportunities for how you might go about contributing to comparative international education. So consider that when you're thinking about all of this. We have great suggestions for what you would need to do to work on that profile. But without any additional delay, let's get to those questions. Julia, who's got a question for us? Oh, but you're muted, Julia, just like Leslie earlier.
Sorry. So we have a question on Saudi Arabia. We are getting a lot of schools that are private, but in Saudi Arabia, how can we verify the school is listed with the MOE? And I believe Shelby and Jasmine, I don't know if you've decided who's speaking first on this.
Yeah, well, I'll get it going and Shelby can
I'll
take
jump
over.
in.
Thank you. Well, if the question is about secondary schools in Saudi Arabia, there are typically two types. Of course, you have the public schools, but our question is about private. So if there are private schools and international schools, and the private schools, if they are owned by Saudi citizens, they will be under the oversight of the Ministry of Education. That means they have to meet all the regulations and all the requirements to operate. If they're international schools, they would need to have a license to operate, but they're not under the auspices and overview of the ministry because they're offering a particular curriculum that is not part of the Saudi system, but part of, let's say, they could be a French school, it could be a French lycée, or it could be an American school following the American curriculum, or it could be a pattern after the UK system offering external exams leading to GCSEs or GCA levels. So if you're looking at whether they are recognized by the ministry, then it would be the private schools, and you will find them listed and inquire. But if you're looking at an international school, you can verify that they are, operating there, but your focus should be on which country's education system they're following, and if the external exams, the matriculation exams have been satisfied. So that's kind of the private school system in a nutshell. Shelby?
And you had been able to look at the schools map imaging system on the MOE website. That's not currently working. Big surprise on their website. I'll try it again in the morning. Maybe it's not just working today. And you could look up schools, and we have found private schools on the map system, whatever it's called. But like I said, for whatever reason, it's just not available today. But I'll share that link with you in the chat in just a moment.
Thank you, Shelby. We also had a question about Rwanda, and I know Dave answered it, but I just wanted to point that to everybody who may not have noticed. It was from Ina, who said she received an advanced level image from an applicant that no longer says the Rwandan Education Board. The title of the credential is Rwanda Advanced Certificate of Education, and the issuer appears to be the National Examination and School Inspection Authority. Has anyone seen this? It's dated December 2023. Dave Mahaly answered that, so I'm going to see if he can come on. I can throw that link that you shared into the chat if you like, Dave.
Yeah, I'm glad to. I'll put the link in the chat. The National Examination and School Inspection Authority, NISA, as it's called now, received all the responsibilities that had been formerly being done by the Rwanda Education Board in December 2020. The Education Board still exists, but it focuses on teacher training and curriculum development instead. So it's no longer the, administrator or issuer of examination documentation. I hadn't been aware of this. It was just something I was able to look up in real time as people were talking. So that's all I know.
And there was one little question about the Araratian Baccalaureate that was in the chat. Updates, you can go look at the grading scales. Those were updated and published earlier today. Whenever you're on the Armenia or any of the profiles, click over on the grading to see what the suggestions are from the IESC. They've gone in, they've looked at how all of that goes through, but I'm not going to take up any more of your time today. It's the end of the hour. Thank you all for joining us. And we will regularly be back the third Thursday of the month in May. Thank you.